Well, it is such a joy to be here with you all this morning. I greatly appreciate the invitation. And again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson, and I proudly lead your Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. Thank you. Our mission is to joyfully organize UUs to co-create a transformative movement for justice through spiritual grounding, collaboration, and imagination. And we do so by working in close relationship with congregations like yourself, with our national UU partners like Side with Love, and of course with our beloved statewide justice partners. We gather here today during incredibly scary and uncertain times. Over the last 2 months at a national level, we have continued to watch this administration dismantle the power and purpose of essential government agencies like USAID, the EPA, and the Department of Education. The richest man in the world, who has never been elected to anything in his life, continues to wield unimaginable and unchecked power over the government, dehumanizing and taking away the livelihood of tens of thousands of hardworking civil servants across our country. Our president continues to align himself with Russia, attacking Vladimir Zelensky in the Oval Office, repeating Russian misinformation and stopping military aid to Ukraine, and we wonder where he got the idea to annex Canada. And this one cannot be overstated. This week, ICE agents illegally arrested and detained Mahmoud Khalil, an activist who helped lead pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University. Let's be clear, they took this man, this student who has legal permanent residency in the United States. They took him not for illegal actions, but for exercising his constitutional right to free speech. This is textbook fascist autocratic behavior, when the President of the United States uses the power of the government to punish his enemies and those who he deems to be a threat, whether it be students, universities, the media, politicians, law firms, the list goes on. These are very scary times. And of course, that playbook of white Christian nationalism, of defunding social services, of threats to our democracy and to the checks and balances of government, it's all happening at a state level too. Beloveds, in these times, it is so easy to fall into despair, to give into fear, to feel that we are powerless spectators watching history unfold before our eyes. Does anyone feel this way? Just remember that that is how they want us to feel. They want to rob us of our hope and courage through displays of overwhelming force. They want to rob us of our imaginations because they know that, as Lucille Clifton once said, we cannot create what we cannot imagine. And what they want most is for us to doubt our power. This moment is a test of our faith in ourselves and in our collective power. So how do we live into that faith? I know we had a lot of disruptors in the house today, that's good. Because we need to be a part of the largest nonviolent resistance movement in the history of this country. That is what is needed right now. We need to protest, we need to boycott, we need to resist. And we also know that the story of our movement, at the heart of our movement, is not what we are fighting against, but what we are fighting for. We need to commit ourselves fully to the movement in our state that is creating a North Carolina that we deserve. We need to believe, to really, truly believe that it is possible, and then we need to will it into existence. And if you doubt our power, let me remind you that we are home to truth tellers like Maya Angelou and Nina Simone and Pauli Murray. We are the home of the lunch counter sit-ins and the Moral Monday movement. We are the people who passed Medicaid when nobody said it was possible. And we are the movement that is building a massive network of safety and care in this moment to fight natural disasters, attacks on our democracy, and extremist groups all at the same time. What I'm saying is, do not forget who we are and who we belong to and the legacy that we have inherited. We also cannot doubt the powerful role that Unitarian Universalists can play in this moment, because we are finding our power too. UUs from the mountains to the coast, from our small congregations in deep red parts of our state with 12 members, to our big churches in our big cities, we are finding our power. We are finding our people. And just one recent example of that power was our 2024 UU the Vote campaign. Who here participated in UU the Vote in 2024? Wonderful. Last year, UU the Vote was the largest activation of UUs in the history of our state, with over 1,100 UUs across 21 congregations getting involved. That's nearly 1 in 5 UUs in the state. Together, we reached out to over 100,000 voters in North Carolina, and we did so in deep partnership with our friends in the movement. Calling over 60,000 North Carolinians through the fall with Pro-Choice North Carolina and Carolina Jews for Justice and National Side with Love, knocking on thousands of doors with North Carolina Asian Americans Together, writing over 40,000 postcards with Reclaim Our Vote. Any postcard writers in the house? And that's not to mention our work as You Can Vote volunteers and Democracy NC vote protectors and doing rides to the polls and ballot curing, and the list goes on. And last year, UU Justice NC was proud to co-lead the creation of our movement's first ever statewide rapid response safety network. We recruited and trained 140 de-escalators across the state, a third of whom were UU, who quickly responded to reported threats at the polls by groups like the Proud Boys, the Moms for Liberty, the Oath Keepers. We are now exploring how to make this new technology a permanent element of our state's community safety efforts. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. There's 2 things I want to say about UU the Vote. First of all, a minute ago, I celebrated that 1 in 5 UUs in the state participated in this campaign. This is a massive accomplishment. It's bigger than anything we have ever done before. And you can do the math. That means that 4 in 5 UUs didn't. And sure, many of us participated in partisan actions in the election. We may have missed people in the count, but still, it is safe to say that the majority of people of our faith did not engage in this election in 2024 beyond voting. And we could dwell on that, and I think we should a little. But more importantly, we should recognize that as an opportunity. We should see it as evidence that we have just barely glimpsed the power of our faith. The second thing I want to highlight here is that the partners that we worked with at a state level, these are not merely election year partners. These are 365 days a year, every year partners. And I know you have partners like that in Winston-Salem. Cherish those relationships. Nurture those relationships. Treat them like they are sacred, because they are. We need partnership now more than ever before, because the only way through this, the only way forward, is together. At a state level, which is UU Justice NC's lane, we are proud to belong to a massive movement ecosystem that is Blueprint North Carolina. It is a network of over 120 organizations moving in formation with shared values and shared strategies. And I'm talking about frontline, small, grassroots organizations all the way up to your big ones like ACLU and Common Cause and Democracy NC. We are all working together under the same umbrella. And I say this to remind us that despite the challenges we face, we have never been more prepared for this moment. We are organized, we are rooted in shared values, and we are growing because so many in this moment are yearning for that deep sense of power and purpose and connection, and we've got it. And even more than that, we belong to an even larger movement across our country that is in relationship. Our neighbors in Georgia and Wisconsin and Missouri and Florida, we too are connected, sharing strategies and tactics and lessons and deepening our alignment with one another. This is how we win, by claiming our power, by claiming our place in the movement and believing that the sum of our actions can change everything. Today's story for all ages was that wonderful book called We Are the Builders by Deepa Iyer. In this story, of course, the guide asks the children to choose how they will help with Community Day. And what Reverend Kayla mentioned is that Deepa Iyer is not only a wonderful children's author, she is also a renowned justice advocate and organizer, and her social change ecosystem map has inspired and informed our movement for nearly a decade, laying out all the different roles needed to create change, exactly the ones you just heard. And in the story, a question was asked that reverberates far beyond the pages of that book. The guide says, "The time is now. What role will you play?" Lately, I've been thinking a lot about all the many roles required in our movement, and I decided to create a list of just some of the things that our partners have asked of us in the past few years. Our partners have needed sign makers, musicians, pickup trucks, a building open from 9 to 5 that can receive deliveries, generators, a choir, a legal observer in Carteret County, someone who can drive supplies from Winston-Salem to Charlotte that afternoon. That was Ann Zimmerman, by the way. Thank you, Ann. They've asked for a worship space in Rocky Mount, volunteers who will write letters to the editors, speak at school board meetings, show up at the General Assembly, pack the courthouse, and people who can drive around in a circle and beep their horn in a car caravan. I'm not done yet. Children who can make Valentines, clergy who can escort Waffle House employees back to work after a strike, home hospitality for those coming out of state to seek an abortion, Ice Watch volunteers, abortion clinic escorts, mutual aid donors, street medics, drag story hour safety team members, people who could drive farm workers to their annual union meeting, people with good penmanship, a kitchen and dining hall that can feed 100 people, childcare volunteers, a large meeting space with live streaming capabilities, candy bag assemblers, and door-to-door canvassers. That is what we need. And don't knock that candy bag assembler one. That one helped us win Medicaid. The good news is that if we get organized, we have the people to do this. I invite you for a moment to think about all the abundant resources of your congregation, your physical infrastructure, your skills, your capacity, and your resources. Think about it. Then combine that with all of the resources of the 28 UU congregations in this state. Then combine that with all the values-aligned churches and synagogues, mosques, temples, and gurdwaras across North Carolina. That, my friends, is exactly what we are building in 2025. This year, UU Justice NC is excited to help lead the creation of Blueprint North Carolina's first ever statewide faith table. Since last year, we have been working in partnership with Carolina Jews for Justice, Muslim Women For, the Quakers, the Council of Churches. We're bringing everyone to the table to organize our network of resources, skills, and capacity in a way that we have never done before. Building an asset map of faith communities and all the ways that we can be of service to the movement in the areas of advocacy, infrastructure, safety, and care. And by the way, I want to lift up the fact that this church is doing exactly what we need you to do as you offer your space to your local organization, Peacework Medical, who is offering trans and non-binary support groups in this facility. That is exactly what we need to do. Yes. So let me ask you this, similar to the story we read, in the list of things that I just named a moment ago, the things that our partners need, who here heard a role today that you are either already doing or have the skills or willingness to do? Who here heard something that you can do? Amazing. In the weeks and months ahead, rest assured that you will hear more about how to sign up for these exact roles. And in the meantime, let's talk about what is needed now. Right now, federal Medicaid funding is at serious risk of being cut. I know that a lot is going on, but this needs our immediate and full attention because we did not fight for 10 years to expand Medicaid to 630,000 people in this state to lose it now. And beyond that expansion, did you know that 1 in 4 people in our state rely on Medicaid, including children, people in nursing homes, and those living with disabilities and chronic illness? Next week, our statewide movement will be organizing a phone call blitz to Senator Thom Tillis, a key vote in this issue, and North Carolina Representative Richard Hudson, who's on the committee that oversees Medicaid. If you're not familiar with our movement's phone call blitz, it's when their offices receive a phone call every 3 minutes for 40 straight business hours. 1,600 calls. If your congregation would like to be involved with this, all you have to do is call once at a very specific time. And if you're interested, I need 40 volunteers from this congregation, and I need 1 volunteer to be a captain. Who here might be willing to make a phone call as a part of this statewide movement? Come see me after church. In this moment, we also need volunteers for our community safety network. That includes getting trained in de-escalation and volunteering on occasion to be a part of a team that provides a safety presence at events where we may experience threats. This includes events like Drag Story Hours, Trans Day of Visibility, Pride events, protests, and events that dare to be centered around the dangerous words diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to give you a sense of who we're looking for here, we're looking for everybody. Wilmington, your partner congregation in Wilmington, North Carolina, they are home, that city is home to the Proud Boys. They experience ongoing threats at their school board meetings, at their countless events. That church has a 40-person de-escalation team that is just one piece of a larger network in their city. And if you have a picture in your brain of who you think are those safety team members, let me tell you that 3/4 of that committee are over the age of 70. And when the Proud Boys arrive, the first thing that we train that crew to do is to do exactly what we did at the start of the service, to sing, "When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love." And that's another thing we have to think about here. We cannot be rigid in our understanding of how we are meant to contribute to our movement, because in the words of Reverend Elizabeth Wynn, we must be, quote, "willing to live our lives in the shape of what is asked." If you are interested in learning more about our safety network, please come see me after church. And actually, we need more people for a team in Greensboro on Saturday. Finally, I invite you to consider joining us this Friday at 11 a.m. on Zoom for UU Justice NC's Friday Action Hour. Who here has been to Friday Action Hour? Of course, we've got several folks in the house who have been here. Every week, UUs and friends across the state gather together to reflect on the week's news, hear directly from one of our partner organizations, and then take action. And when I say every week, I mean every week. On Friday, we just celebrated the 250th straight week of action. Not too shabby. So if you are looking for a weekly opportunity to experience connection and power and joy, please consider joining us. And if you can't make it on Fridays, you can still subscribe to our listserv and get our weekly list of actions. You can sign up for that after service. Beloveds, in this moment, we are called to interrogate the limits of our imagination for what is possible. We are called to have faith in us. And as I have said before, not just to fight against this onslaught, but to be centered in our values and in our imagination and power, and as Stacey Abrams described, not be in a defensive crouch, but be in the active work of creation. We must be guided and sustained by the vision of a North Carolina where we are all included, where we all thrive, with rights and dignity for all people, with health care and child care and fair wages and workers' rights, affordable housing, fully funded public schools, and an inhabitable earth. That is what we are building together. May we hold that vision. May we claim our power to build a new way. And may we hear the movement calling our name. Beloveds, the time is now. What role will you play? Amen.